What is up, everyone? Welcome to Real Talk, the unedited, scripted, unfiltered show where I'd sit down with a gaming personality and talk about anything and everything. Scott Smith has been in the industry for a long time. No, a really, really long time. He's one of the originals, guys. From climbing the ranks at Godfrag and then creating Godfrag TV to helping Evil Geniuses become the biggest team in esports, Scott Smith seems to have done it all. Very interested in today's show because knowing Scott for what really seems ages, I don't know a thing about his personal life. So Scott, what's up, man? Welcome to Real Talk.
Thanks, JP. Glad we could finally figure it out that I could be on Real Talk. It's a good series. Really good series. I've learned a lot about people that I've known for a long, long, long time listening to your shows. So
awesome. Thank you.
Glad to be here.
So how's life after EG, man? What's it like?
It's great, you know. The lack of responsibility and worry is amazing. Like, I get to game a lot. I'm pondering the concept of, can I turn this into an early retirement? Probably not. But yeah, it's good. It's good. Life is good for me right now. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about, as we always do here, and kind of just jump into your personal story. And as I mentioned, this is something that I think a lot of people just don't know anything about. You're really good at keeping your personal life out of everything. So where were you born, and where did you grow up?
I was born in Detroit, Michigan, on August 26, 1966. So you can do the math. It makes me 46. I'm a Virgo. And my favorite color is blue, as a matter of fact.
There you go. What did your parents do for work as a child?
A couple different things, I guess. So my father was in the hotel and meeting planning hospitality business. So he worked for large meeting planning companies that corporations would hire to do the big events. And those that know me know that I kind of went in those footsteps and did big events as well. So he was with a big company in Detroit that led to a big company in Dayton, Ohio. So I was born in Detroit. But then I lived in Dayton, Ohio for a lot of years. And my dad always stayed in kind of the hotel hospitality industry. He then took a job at Lake Tahoe. And so from like first grade, I want to say about 76 to 84, I lived in Lake Tahoe, Nevada, on the Incline Village side of the lake. Again, my dad was in the hospitality business, dealing with tour groups, etc. And, basically was in that business till he passed away. And my mom, as I was growing up, she was mostly a mom. I have two older brothers and a deceased sister, so she was a mom. But then as we got older, she started doing some artwork stuff. She owned a store in Ohio, did some retail stuff. She has an architecture background, so she designed some homes, designed one of the homes we lived in. And then when we lived in Lake Tahoe, she was actually a substitute teacher in the school system, helped organize the PTA and all sorts of stuff locally, became a bookkeeper and all sorts of stuff. Again, dad's passed away. Mom is now happily retired.
What would you say your relationship was like with your parents growing up?
Really good. Good, tight family unit, I think, would be the easiest way to describe the Smiths. My parents have always been, and especially as we got a little older, they let you be inquisitive. They let you ask a lot of questions. They let you devil's advocate at the dinner table. They let you debate at the dinner table. It wasn't a very strict. I don't know how to put this. I guess we were allowed freedom of expression to at least discuss stuff, right? We weren't very repressed, I guess, if that makes sense. And family was very much into games, board games, and playing games together, and game night, and whether it was Monopoly or Life or card games, like we kind of did a lot of that stuff as a family. The typical like playing Risk with your entire family, and your brother gets caught cheating, and he flips the whole board over, and dad then grounds him and stuff. So, like one of the stories I always tell about my mom is when we were living in Ohio. She was a stay-at-home mom. And her boys were all of age that we could play with her, so to speak, right, and play these games, Monopoly, Life, etc. And we'd get off the school bus, and we'd be walking down the driveway to get to our house, and we could look up in the house, and Mom would be holding a board game. And it might be Monopoly or Risk or something. It was like, that's what we're playing when you guys get done with your homework and you get changed out of your school clothes. So it was a very interactive, engaging family. And to this day, again, my dad did pass away several years ago. My mom and I still play games together. We do puzzles together. My mom last year actually moved into my house, so we also had a kind of a life full circle thing where your parents take care of you, and then somewhere along the way you start taking care of them. So I really had a great childhood. Two older brothers, a sister that I didn't really know. She was killed by a drunk driver when I was like 2. So I don't personally have any knowledge of her. My two older brothers certainly remember times with her, and my parents do. And I would say a fairly typical childhood. My dad had decent jobs. We weren't rich. We weren't poor. We did grow up in Lake Tahoe, if anyone's visited there, it's a really weird place to call home. It's a very, very big tourist area. Mm-hmm. It's not a big city. And I was thinking about this interview today. In like my time in high school and stuff, and people, I talked to a lot of my friends went to school, when they went to high school, and their school was like 4,000 kids, 5,000 kids, 2,000 kids, 1,000 kids in your graduating class, and like that's like a city to me. Like I grew up in Lake Tahoe, Nevada, Incline Village, small little town, 400 kids in my entire school, and about 75 in my particular graduating class. So it was just a very unique kind of small, small but cool environment. Everybody knew everybody, which is good and bad. You also knew everybody's business. It wasn't as cliquey because everything was kind of merged, if that makes sense. So sure. I think I've answered like 12 questions right there, by the way. But yeah,
it's all good. It's all good. You mentioned you were the youngest, right, in the family? You had
I am the youngest. Yep, youngest brother.
Would you say that you kind of, I guess, fit the stereotype that comes along with that? Were you babied by your parents? Were you kind of given everything while the other kids had to fight for what they wanted, or how would you say that family was structured?
I think it goes both ways. I think my oldest brother Mark had it the hardest because he was breaking all the rules first, right, and getting all the penalties, and then Kurt, the middle brother. They had caught on to the games that kids play growing up, so Kurt probably had the biggest spotlight on him already, in the sense that mom and dad weren't going to let Kurt get away with anything that Mark got away with because they're smarter, right? And then there's me. I think I got away with stuff because my parents were just maybe over it too, at that sense. And the rebellion in my family was my middle brother. He was the one that got in trouble with the parents and almost got kicked out of house growing up. We all know people like that. That wasn't me, and that wasn't my older brother. That was Kurt. So I don't think I got spoiled per se, because again, like shit flows downhill, right? So I got all their old clothes, I got all their old toys, I got all that shit too. But I think my parents had pretty much, by the time they got to me, knew how to parent maybe better and knew the games that, you know what I mean? Like we all try to pull shit as kids, right? Whether it's throwing parties when your parents are out of town or whatever. Like they had heard it all, they had experienced it all by the time I tried it. So they would laugh at me and go, "Scott, really? You really want us to believe that the dog threw up on the bed and we happened to be in Hawaii and you didn't throw a party and get drunk? Really?" So stuff like that. Yeah, so I think my oldest brother got it the hardest, and Kurt and I, we kind of went down the same road, but we were different enough people that we got treated differently. I'm the one that went to college, and I don't know, I followed more in my dad's footsteps than they did. So we were all just different animals to my parents, I guess.
What are what did your parents do? Or sorry, your two older brothers. What did they do for work kind of after schooling?
Actually, it's kind of interesting. None of us have ever had real what I would call real jobs. Like we're not accountants, we're not doctors, we're not lawyers. We don't go into cubicles. My oldest brother is a yacht captain, so he's a certified boat guy. He can drive. He can drive big ships, little ships, yachts. And so he's an independent yacht captain. So he gets hired by rich owners of yachts to move their boats around, to captain for them. Lives up in Maine, where all the boats live. He travels the world on yachts. And my middle brother, and he's always been into that. He's always been into boats and water. He was in the Coast Guard, like always been around boats. That's his thing. And my middle brother, Kurt, has always been an outdoorsy kind of guy. Like I went to college, and he went to Yosemite. That was his college. He's a big rock climber. Used to be a professional rock climber, one of the top U.S. climbers in the scene in the world years and years ago, and now he's turned that into a business. And he is part owner in a clothing outdoor rep company. So they rep different lines, do trade shows, sell, to rock climbing shops and REIs and all that kind of stuff. So still kind of in the outdoorsy climbing business, but no longer like a professional climber. And again, not really a real job. Travels the world like selling ropes. Yeah. And again, we've always been really, really lucky. And I think that goes back to my parents. My parents are always like, we don't care what you do, but what you're not going to do is live on our support forever and, be happy. So we don't care if you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you go in the hotel business. We don't give a shit. Just go do something that pays your bills and in a perfect world makes you really happy. And all three of the sons, we've had our ups and downs financially, but we've all been able to kind of do that. And I think if you ask my mom and my dad if he was still alive, that would probably be their proudest thing is that their sons pursued their dreams, whatever they happen to be, and still do them.
So school, what was school like for you? Were you the good student? Were you the bad boy? What would you say your stereotype kind of was while you were in school?
I would say I was a lazy A-B student. Again, I went to a really small school. Really good hands-on teachers, those kind of things, right? You were never lost in a classroom, right? So I think if I would have applied myself, I could have got straight A's kind of thing, but that just wasn't my scene. So A's and B's student. I was very active in school stuff, probably more in school stuff than the academic portion, So I did debating while I was in school. I did drama while I was in school. I played a really, really little bit of sports right in the beginning of my school career, like, freshman basketball, but quickly realized that I was way too short, way too small, never going to be big enough. So I knew that being in sports in high school wasn't going to be for me, so I did the next best thing. I was the manager of the sports teams. Because I wanted to be part of it, school spirit and competition. And again, I wasn't going to be a football player, but I certainly could help the coaches and be a student manager and tape ankles and learn all of those things. So I did. So in school, I kind of touched all these, again, very small school. So I touched all these different circles of friends. You didn't have like your jocks and your stoners and your nerd academic kids. There were so few of us that you kind of did a little bit of everything, right? And so I guess I was just an A-OK student, Yeah.
Now, apart from being a manager, did you do any? I mean, were you a nerd at all? Did you do any other clubs outside of what you did in sports, like I don't know, chess club or anything like that, or was it just primarily I'm the sports manager, I'm going to be kind of the lazy student, like you said?
No, I mean, again, I went to school, I graduated high school in 1984, so that can give you an idea of what kind of technology, what kind of technology was out there. But, I did take some computer classes. We didn't have a computer club per se. I imagine now all the schools do, but we had a couple classes that you could take as electives. We had Commodore 64s, so I took those classes. But yeah, I guess I was very involved in sports as the manager guy because again, very small. So and it went seasonal. So you were the football manager, then you were basketball, baseball. Big into drama. So I was in all our plays. I directed our senior play. I tweeted that I wanted to go back to Ashland. I went to Ashland. So I was kind of a drama. I guess they're called drama geeks and nerds now, but like it wasn't like Glee, I guess. But
right.
But yeah, I was on the debate team, so we traveled for that, boys' state, government stuff, kind of a little bit of everything. There were a couple different things where you could take, what were they called? I want to say like Toastmaster, Optimist clubs where you gave speeches and there were awards for that. It's kind of into all that, public speaking, etc. I was just very outgoing, I've never been a shy type. And so all those things that I was involved in are kind of out there, a little bit in the public, in the scenes, I guess.
It's ironic to me that you managed a sports team in school, you did some drama, you directed, and here you are, kind of doing all the same things still a little bit later in life. So I think that's an interesting correlation there between your childhood and adulthood. How far did you go in your academic career? Did you go all the way and graduate college?
I did not. I went on a. And again, it sounds way bigger than it was, but I went on a full ride scholarship to UNLV for a student athletic manager job for the basketball team. basketball coach that I was a manager for at Incline High School. Was good friends with one of the assistant coaches at UNLV, and again, very prestigious basketball program, Tark the Shark. I was going there anyway for hotel school because, again, I wanted to kind of follow my dad's footsteps, and they have a fantastic hotel school. So I was going anyway, and I was in-state tuition, so very, very cheap scholarship. Let me put it that way. It's not like winning a full ride to Harvard or something. So it would have been inexpensive even if my parents paid the bills, and maybe that's why I got the ride anyway, because I was, local to UNLV anyway. So I went there for about 2.5, 3 years. I quit into my third year. And again, I was going to Vegas for hotel school, and, I was about 3 years into it, taking, and a lot of college is taking very, very basic shit that you're really never going to need. Right, whether it's your sociology classes or your economics 101, all these core courses that you technically have to take that most people don't pay attention to anyway, but you pass and you move on. And I was starting to get into the meat of a lot of the hotel courses, like hotel law and shit. And I was just sitting there going, this is a waste. This is a waste of my time. I want to be in this business. This isn't like being a doctor or a lawyer. I do not need a degree from UC to go run a hotel or go be in the business of running hotels. I just don't. It's not like being an accredited thing where you kind of need that, or a master's. And I was spending way too much time partying, hanging out, having fun, doing everything in college than learning. And what I was learning wasn't really teaching me anything. I was learning like tort law from 1875 England, innkeeper law and shit. And I get that it's all based on how it is now, but I was extremely like, what the fuck am I doing here? And while I was going to school in Vegas, my parents had moved from Lake Tahoe, and my dad took a job in Breckenridge, Colorado, as a VP of sales and marketing of a big hotel up there. So when I wasn't in college, I was in Breck working in hotels. I was doing bellman duties, front desk. I was learning the hotel business for real. And then after the summer, I'd go back to Vegas. And I finally was like, what the fuck am I doing? Let's just go to work. Let's go pursue. My dad doesn't have a college degree. He's rocking and rolling. All my dad's counterparts don't have college degrees. I don't need one for this. I could have stayed, got my degree, but I was like, I'm out. Let's go work. And I did. So I quit, and I went to Colorado and started working full-time in the business. Everything from front office manager to banquet captain to setups, and spent a bunch of time between Aspen and Breckenridge learning the business, basically. So that's how I ended so yeah, I have no college degree, to put it bluntly. Sorry.
I want to kind of visit what was going to school in Vegas like? Were you what was that interesting? I guess is how I'll start off.
Well, it was far interesting for me to watch all my friends and when I met my friends, right? Because I lived in Nevada. I grew up in Lake Tahoe, so I grew up around casinos. I grew up around that. The local arcade we went to, every chance we got in Incline was inside the Hyatt Hotel and Casino. So, I would meet these guys from like the East Coast in Jersey, and all of these friends, I would meet through college, and they would lose their minds in Vegas, right? They would literally lose their fucking minds.
Absolutely.
They invariably, like once a month, someone that I would know would call home and use the need more book money excuse, right? Because they fucking spent all their money that parents gave them on gambling, right? Whether it was, because, sports books, and, we weren't playing slots, right? Sports books and those kind of things. So I was always very moderate with my gambling. Like I used gambling to go get drunk. Because back then it was even easier to go with a little bit of money into a casino.
Oh, sure.
Spend a little bit of money around the casino floor and get a boatload of free drinks before you'd lost all your money, and then get out. And that's what college students did. So we'd roll in with like a fucking roll of dimes, sit at a dime slot machine as slow as we could play it. Vodka tonic. But we all had fake IDs. It was very easy. So very cheap to get drunk in Vegas. But for those that were not around gambling or not around that scene, incredibly bad distraction for students. I mean, from being able to go eat at 4 a.m. when you should be sleeping to just staying up all night. So many friends dropping out, moving to different colleges. Because you've been there for events, right? It is just not an easy place to get real shit done.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that is why. Again, I partied. I was in a fraternity. We had a great time. But it was probably the most adult decision, JP, that I've ever made in my life. To sit there as a young adult who could have just stayed in college and go, I just want to go to Colorado and start really working. And again, it was Breckenridge, Colorado, too. With anyone's familiar with that ski town, it was a great place to quit college and go be in, too. It wasn't like I was quitting to go work in St. Louis. But yeah, just very distracting I mean, it still is, every time there's a pro gaming event in Vegas, I go, oh fuck,
yeah,
this is going to be really fun, but this is not good.
It's going to be
this
one
is
of those
so distracting
weekends,
for players. Yeah. Especially when EG, I'm like, okay, do I have to worry about Cody or do I have to worry about the players? Okay, but we'll get to all that.
Sure. So I kind of know what you do outside of esports, but how do you go from and we'll get to gaming and everything a little bit later, because I'm sure that comes in. That's a factor in this. But how do you go from working at a hotel in Breckenridge, Colorado, to, I don't even know what your role was, but I guess touring the world with Coca-Cola, going to these Olympic Games, going to these World Cups? How did you kind of make that connection?
Yeah. So again, my dad's career was two-sided. The first part of my dad's career, there's a huge business of professional meeting planning businesses whose sole purpose is to help another big business plan their events. And that's, so when you roll into a Vegas and you're at a CES or any other big trade show, there's lots of other logistic companies helping Intel do their thing, or Microsoft or anybody else, right? And this happens all over the world, whether it's product launches, trade shows, incentive trips where a sales force has been given a goal, and if they meet the goal, then the top 400 salespeople and their wives all go to Hawaii for a weekend vacation. But it's kind of a corporate vacation, right? They all get schmoozed. So there's a huge business behind planning these, right? They're, again, corporate travel agent is kind of a way to put it, but it's not just booking your air. It's everything. And so my dad was in that business for a lot of years. And part of that business is there's staff that travels to facilitate the people that have planned the event. So, I mean, and MLG is a prime example. Let's say Adam plans in his mind and does all the contractor work with all the vendors of an MLG. He's got the hotel contracts. He's got this. He's got that. He brings people in when it's go time to help make sure all that happens, right? Someone's keeping an eye on the power. Someone's making sure the tables are dropped. Someone's checking the food and beverage. A team of people, right? Well, I was one of those people for these various companies, and it's a freelance kind of job. So Coca-Cola, for example, and Coca-Cola is slightly different because they are their own meeting planner. But for example, Coca-Cola has a big trip somewhere. They then go to ABC Meeting Planning Company and they go, hey, we want you to do this for us. And they give them a shitload of money. And this company becomes their travel agency for everything for that event. And when I mean everything, the guest who's coming on that trip stops worrying about anything when he opens his door to go to the airport. And he starts worrying when he gets home. Someone picks him up, takes him to his local airport. Make sure he gets checked in. He flies wherever he's going. All those logistics. When you land at an airport and you go down to baggage claim and there's someone holding a sign, that kind of shit. That's a corporate client being met to be put on a bus, taken to a hotel, to go into a bunch of meetings. So it's that kind of thing, right? Multi-billion-dollar business. So Dad's been doing this forever, and my dad's close circle of friends when I was growing up were people that were doing this job for a living, traveling around doing event logistics, right? And these were guys that would say, like, being all over, but better food and better uniform, because you didn't pay for anything. It was all covered by someone. So it was kind of like this dream illusion job of, wow, I could go work and someone will pay me to travel. Huh. So fast forward, I leave college and I'm working in the hotel industry, and I'm several years into working in Breckenridge, right? And I like it, but it's the same job over and over and over. The cool thing about being in the hospitality industry and being on the meeting planning side is your job is at a different ballroom, a different airport, a different part of the world every time. Working in a hotel, well, you're working in that hotel. So I kind of got bored. And my dad used to always say, hey, you should reach out to my friends and get on the road, do this travel thing. And he offered my oldest brother, then he offered Kurt, and when I was of age, I was like, whatever, Dad. Everyone probably always gets that right from their dad or their mom. Oh, you should come do this. That's cool. Look what it did for me. And I was like, whatever. And I'll tell the breaking point, because it's about a guy from Texas, and you're from Texas, right?
Sure.
So I'm working, and I'm front desk manager of this place called Beaver Run Resort in Breckenridge, Colorado. It's a big condominium resort, hugely popular, obviously winter destination for skiing, and very, very popular with Texans. Breckenridge and Texans, I don't know what it is, but they love Summit County. They love to ski there.
I have heard of this.
It's huge. And a busy week, busy middle of winter week, and the way the resorts work up there is basically you book Sunday to Sunday. Like you can't just come for one night. Like the rooms are sold for like 6 nights at a time because they can be. So you buy a week. Maybe if someone knows shows, you can get a night here and there. So people plan around their vacations. They bring their whole family, the whole 9 yards. So it's about 11 o'clock one night. I'm working front desk, and the shuttle bus from the airport pulls up, and this family of 4 gets off. And it's a Saturday night. We've sold into most of our block. Everyone's checked in. A few people left, but I don't have a lot of wiggle room, right? This is a busy time of the year. Mm-hmm. Family comes strolling up to the front desk. Every single one of them are wearing full-length fur coats. Husband, wife, kid about 12, kid about 11, right? 2 kids, boy and a girl, all decked in Houston oil money clothing, right? Again, now you're talking like early 90s. So I'm checking him in, whatever his name is, blah, blah, blah. And the way Beaver Run Resort worked is, again, they're all condos, and the way the buildings are set up is, for the most part, you either looked down into town or you looked up at the mountain. So you kind of had a city view or a ski view. Well, everybody who comes to that town wants a ski view. It's nature, right? You want to come, you look at the mountain, you're coming on a ski trip. Well, only half of them get it. So you couldn't buy the view. It was a first come, first serve. If the room was available with the view, you got it. If you didn't, you didn't. So it is what it is. So he checks in about 11 o'clock at night. I got no ski side rooms available that night. They're all gone already. So I started explaining to him the room he's got, facing the town of Breckenridge, beautiful at night, the spiel. And I can just tell he is going to lose his shit on me. He's starting to get red. He's starting to do this on the desk. You can't see me. I'm tapping my hands. And he's like, that's unacceptable, and he does one of these, peers at my name badge, Scott. And I'm like, well, sir, the policy of our reservations is, you can request a ski side, but it's only available if it's available at check-in. I see you did request it. I just looked in the system. There are none available. I give him the whole standard spiel. You give it like 20 times a day during the winter, right? He's not going to have anything to fucking do with it, right? Now, the same time, and this is slowly starting to get heated, right? I'm raising my voice. He's raising his voice. And right across from me in our lobby is this hospitality desk. And every time that these, when we get back to the meeting planning stuff, they always have a hospitality desk, right? So that the guests of the event have somewhere to go to ask questions. What time is dinner? What time does the shuttle leave? They're like traveling little concierge, right? That only care about those guests. And they always kind of sit in the main part of a hotel. Easy for the guests to find, right? And there's these 2, like 22-year-old, straight out of college, cute as a button girls sitting across from me because they have a small group in house. And I've chatted with them. I checked their people in. I hit on them. We've had beers. Nothing happened there, but we know each other, right? And I've even started to ask them about what they're doing because what they're doing for a job is what my dad always tells me to go do, but I want to hear it from their side, not my dad's side, right? So we're having good conversations over the weekend about well, it's not quite like what your dad says. It's more like this. I'm getting an idea of their job, and they can see that this is starting to happen, right? So one of them gets up and she pretends like she has something to ask, and she just pulls up to the far side of the desk just to watch this, right? This guy then starts to literally start yelling at me. He's like, God damn it! You know how much a ski vacation costs? And now he's pounding the desk. He's literally yelling and screaming in my face. And there's a big wood desk between us, probably it's like a big bar almost. It could be a bar, maybe 2 feet. Far end of it is a nightclub for Beaver Run Resort that the head of security is standing there doing bouncer duty, happens to also be my roommate. It's Saturday night in Breckenridge. It's a local club. It's getting busier. So he's keeping an eye on things, but he's also moved away from the door so he can hear the conversation, right? Because the fellow at Beaver Run, not very big. So now I've got this travel director girl watching me, and I got my buddy watching me, and he is losing his shit on me. God damn it, who's the boss? I want to speak to the manager right now. And I'm like, sir, I am the boss. I'm the night manager at Beaver Run Resort. Here's my card. I've explained the situation, and I'm the same guy I've always been, right? So I am now very much starting to lose my patience with this guy, right? And I'm like, sir, and I'm starting to be short with him. Sir, there's nothing more I can do for you tonight. Tomorrow I could try to move you. I'll put a note in the system, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't want anything to do with it, JP. He literally reaches over the desk and grabs my tie.
Holy crap.
Right? Grabs my tie and starts to try to pull me over the desk. Guess what? Clip on. My tie comes off in his hand. And he like does one of these and kind of doesn't fall back, but falls back on his feet, doesn't fall over, thankfully. I would have laughed if he did. But this pulls my tie off, right? And now I start laughing. I step away from the desk and I'm like, okay, now you've kind of screwed the pooch here, sir. And he's like, what do you mean? He throws my tie back at me. I'm like, well, now you've physically assaulted me. You've literally physically assaulted me in front of witnesses. So now I'd like to give you a room. I can keep your deposit, and I can kick your ass to the curb. And you and your little, beautiful, rich family of 4 will have nowhere to sleep in a very oversold town. So now I'm going to tell you one more time. Either go to your room and get out of my lobby, or I'll call the police. and now my security buddy's next to me, like, giggling, and the fucking girl is beside herself. She's like, oh, my fucking God. Sure. Customer always right, and I had enough, right? And I'm like, sir, you're embarrassing yourself in front of your wife and certainly in front of your 2 kids, right? I'll try to move you. I turn it back. I'm like, just go to your room. I know you're tired, blah, blah, blah. Get out of my face. He does. But really long story. Sorry about that. But that was the turning point for me. I'm like, that's it. You're done with this hotel business shit. I want to be involved in the service industry, but and so that literally led me to talking to those girls more in depth. They gave me some contact info. My dad gave me some contact info. And literally within months, I started to take trips and I was on the road. And then I was a freelance event logistics guy for about, even when I was working for Gottfried for a while, so about 13 or so years. Yeah. Traveling the world, helping other people, orchestrate their events, which led me to a bunch of people that do Coca-Cola events, which led me to eventually getting on their team and doing all the Coca-Cola big sport events, which is the one client I still keep.
Yes. So where have you been? Because I've heard you were at the last World Cup. You've been to the past 3 Olympics, 4 Olympics. Where have you all been because of this job? Well,
I mean, non-Olympic stuff. I mean, I've pretty much been. I think the only major. Like I never did anything in Japan. But, I went everywhere. I mean, again, like it was like being in the Army or in the military. I mean, because, again, these events happen everywhere. Mm-hmm. You also go to places that you never wish you'd go to. Like I've been to Dallas way more times than I ever cared to before I even went there for a single video game event, right? Dallas is a big convention hall city. So is Orlando, Florida. So is Vegas. But, yeah, all over Europe, all over, anywhere kind of tropical and cool. Because, again, a big part of this business is what they call incentive trips. And an incentive trip is very, very simple. You sell copiers for Xerox, right? You're a copy salesman. And they say to you at the beginning of the year, all right, JP, if you sell 125% of your quota, and here's your quota, you win a trip for 2 to Hawaii, right? And then you're part of the Xerox President's Club, right? And every salesperson in Xerox has this contest, right? Then they gather you all up, and you don't go like with your wife when you want to. You go as a group. So the group goes 500 people, courtesy of Xerox. It's planned as like a big family vacation. So there's activities, there's fun shit, there's dinners. So it's called an incentive trip because they've incentivized you, the salesman, to win the trip. Well, you selling 125% of your quota paid for the trip to happen in the first place, right? So it incentivizes you to make more money for the company, so the spend on it is kind of internal marketing money, if that makes sense. So those kind of trips always go somewhere cool. You don't take an incentive trip to Dallas, Texas, because who the fuck wants to go to Dallas, Texas? Because the idea is to incentivize you, right? So they're like, you're going to Venice, you're going to Hawaii. So been all over the place for those kind of things, and been all over the big cities of the world for more like convention-y kind of stuff. Olympics, I think the last one I did was my 7th, and this will be my third. I want to say this will be my 3rd World Cup when I do Rio for Coke. And then I've done U.S. Opens, both tennis and golf. I've done Super Bowls. I've done college stuff. Because, again, what the corporate world will also do is the same kind of concept. But instead of building it around just like taking you to Hawaii, they'll take you and the top 100 salesmen to the Final Four basketball tournament or to the Masters golf tournament. I've done the Masters tournament like 5 times for corporate clients. Wow. It's all about incentivizing that sales force to again, go sell whatever the widget is. So a lot of that. So kind of everywhere. Again, sometimes though, I've gone to really cool places and never left hotel, said ballroom, said convention center. Like I could have been in Dallas and I was in Bahamas, or just by the nature of how busy the program was, because we are there to work, whereas the guests are there to do everything but work. So it really depends on the program. Sure. But yeah, all over the place.
Do you have a favorite place or event that you've been to, kind of over all the years?
I think all the Olympics are my favorite events. I think they're some of the hardest events I've ever worked, but they're definitely some of the most rewarding. And the event itself absolutely encompasses why I was there, right? If I do like I've done really cool trips and incentive programs to Barcelona, Spain, right? Some of the coolest I've been in Barcelona, Spain, one of my favorite cities in the world. But those weren't around something bigger than that trip for the people, right? The Olympics is bigger than anybody who goes. World Cup, bigger than anyone that goes. So I think that added atmosphere it makes it harder, but it makes it all that more rewarding. So yeah, Olympics, and then my favorite cities, I think, event-wise, is Barcelona.
Awesome.
Without a doubt.
Well, let's kind of circle back to video games. You mentioned you obviously played kind of the very beginning of video games. When were you introduced to PC gaming, which I would think is probably your home when it comes to games?
Yeah, I guess PCs first for me were in high school, and again, they were not the PCs of now. So
right.
My very first PC was a TRS-80. Made by Tandy, which is Radio Shack.
Jeez.
Yeah. And it was all like one unit. It was a modular, I guess you could Google TRS-80. It was all like one molded kind of unit, and the keyboard was kind of separate. The media, the tape drive, if you will, was literally a cassette tape drive. Wow. That if you listened, it went, but you would record your programs to it. You would play your programs off it. So it was definitely a TRS-80 and then a Commodore 64. But games back like games for the Tandy were like adventure based, like Haunted House or the earlier adventure games like Zork, etc. There was the graphics it was green cathode ray tube, right? And then I would say in Colorado when I was a ski bum, and a little bit in college, also in high school, like I had an Atari. My very, very first computer gaming device that I owned was a Mattel handheld football game, circa 1978, I want to say. And if those are familiar, you can actually get it on the iPhone now. It's kind of funny. It's like,
oh yeah, like 3.
But that led to an Atari. In college we messed with an Intellivision. One of my buddies had an Intellivision. But I really didn't get into like gaming like as a very regular pastime till I was a ski bum in Colorado with Nintendo and Nintendo 64 with my buddy. And which then led to laptop, to games like Alone in the Dark and Doom and Quake and TIE Fighter and Duke Nukem, which then really eventually led to 1999, I should say 1998, Half-Life, and then 1999, Counter-Strike.
So
Counter-Strike, baby.
Prior to Counter-Strike, was there, and I guess Half-Life as well, did you have kind of is there a game that really brings back some true nostalgia for you? Other than Counter-Strike, obviously?
If I think back to like game with my buddies and shit, Mike Tyson Punch-Out, like we spent like eons playing Punch-Out, you know, and all those games. And again, when I lived in Breckenridge, Colorado, so if those of you that aren't familiar, it's a very small ski town, and again, this is in the 90s. So, like, when our city market, which was a grocery store, was starting to rent video games, we lost our minds. Because you would have to drive to, Denver to buy a game There was no Amazon, there was no online. So the simple fact that we could just rent these games and not have to spend $50 or drive to Denver because we burned through them, right? So we just play the shit out of all these games. Nintendo, then Super Nintendo. Turning point. Literally turning point game for me, multiplayer wise, is Duke Nukem, and the early Doom and Quakes, and just playing with my buddies on LAN and blowing each other up with trip mines and those kind of things. Long before I discovered the internet and playing with a lot of other people.
And finally, I think we might just kind of wait to talk about the CS. Your CS, I guess. Not really a career, but interest in Counter-Strike when we get to your professional career. But finally, what do you do to kick back and relax these days? Is it play games, watch tournaments, or to get something non-esports? What do you do?
Non-esports, definitely gaming a lot. I think now that I've left EG, I found myself gaming a lot more than I did during, and it wasn't that I couldn't. I was focused. My time was elsewhere. So, I guess I was watching more than playing. I've definitely got the PlanetSide 2 bug. Right now. So I'm playing that all the time. The Walking Dead games have me entranced. Definitely just a lot of gaming, and much like you, not necessarily the games of the core of esports, right? Although I do want to play this version of StarCraft 2 when it comes out and literally play it. I do want to play more Dota. I do want to play more League. I find myself catching up on a lot of TV shows. I tweeted last week that I watched Breaking Bad finally, and like all this shit that I missed, I've spent these last couple months of not having any duties, like catching up on a lot of shit, a lot of shows, a lot of Netflix, a lot of chilling with my mom, streaming myself. Yeah.
Cool. Well, guys, when we come back, we're going to be talking about the professional career of SirScoots, ranging from kind of his start at Gottfrag all the way to where he is now after leaving EG and live on 3 this past couple of weeks. So don't go anywhere. We got more Real Talk with SirScoots coming up right after this.